Hey, this is Mike Barnes, the financial first responder. Hey, tonight I'm going to talk to you about a topic that's near and dear to my heart: how to build financial security on a government salary. Now, I want you to stay tuned because I'm going to be talking to you about some things, whether you're law enforcement, meaning you're a G man or G woman, whether you work for the federal government as a special agent or police officer or as a inspector. So the first thing is your income, your money, your lifestyle. I want you to think about budgeting and the accounts, your account specifically, when it comes to overtime and hazardous pay, okay, per se. Then I want you to prioritize your needs over your wants with little or no pressure. I want you to think about making your benefits work better for you. And then I also want you to think about the common financial traps that affect law enforcement and veterans every day. Today, I'm going to show you some ways on how to build real financial security on a government salary without feeling like you have to work your life until you drop dead. Sounds good? Now, just so you know a little bit about me, if you're a first time to the channel, I've been in the military 20 plus years, so 21, almost 22 years between the Marine Corps and the Army. I've been in law enforcement since 2010. So I've had my fill of understanding some of the trials and tribulations that most law enforcement or service connected disabled veterans or military personnel might be going through. And I started thinking, because I've been in finance for 30 years almost, how I could actually help my brothers and sisters in those two areas. The first thing I knew was I had to understand about my income and my lifestyle. Most of you see are going to have what we call base pay. And forgive me for my drawing because I'm using a pen now. Okay. Yeah, that's pretty good. Plus OT, or that extra money, right? Overtime. Now, your base pay is whatever your salary or your hourly wage is. And let's say we're going to take a new officer in the government, and let's say that your salary is, let's say it's $70,000. 70K. And let's say that you get time and a half or double time, and let's say that that is whatever amount of hours you may work overtime. Okay. So the way we would look at this is that we would take that 70K and we would have a rate that you actually use. Okay. So now that we're thinking about that, let's say that your hourly rate is for that 70K is going to be somewhere around $25, $30 an hour. Let's just say it's that. Okay. So we would take the $30 per hour. Maybe it's more, maybe it's less. These are all guesstimates, right? That 30, and let's say that you work 10 hours over or 20 hours over. That 20 hours over is going to give you, what is that going to be? That's going to be an extra $600 on top of your regular base pay. Okay. So we're going to use that as an example. All right. So I want you to start thinking about most people, or most of you who work for the government. Maybe you work for a municipality. Maybe you work for a state or local government, municipality, local, state, and then federal. You have overtime. You might have some hazardous pay put in there, and then you might have special duty. For those of y'all who don't know what special duty is, maybe you're on SWAT, Maybe you're a part of a hazmat team. It's in addition to what you do, right? And what you're looking at is, and what we find as a financial advisor, financial first responder, is that people are relying too much on their overtime. So let's say that for some reason, and this has happened before, overtime gets cut. Let's say that you were used to getting $600 every 2 weeks extra. So that's another $1,200 on top of your pay. Okay. Now, over a course of a year or over 10 months, that would be 12,000, and add another 2,400 to it. So that means annually you would have made an extra $14,400 on top of your 70,000. Okay. Now, what we're constantly telling people is don't be reliant on the extra 14,000, because it might not be enough if you base all your bills on 84,400. You might have a slump in how you have traditionally saved money if for some reason this OT dries up. Now, if you keep living long enough, OT will dry up, excuse me. Now, I want you to start thinking about, from this standpoint, is maybe I should only rely on my 70,000, right? Maybe that's the case. But what we do know is this, that if you rely on that 84 and it dries up, that's a $14,000 shortfall that all your bills were based on. Am I getting your attention now? Hopefully. So then we start looking at smart budgeting that accounts for the overtime and the hazardous pay. So let's say that it doesn't dry up. What we need to do is we need to have two forms of budget, right? We need to have a core budget. And I'm just going to put this here so that you can see. Look at that. That core budget would be based off of the $70,000. And then you would have the opportunity budget. Now, the opportunity budget, or extra budget, is that budget. Now I'll just put those there. It is that extra $14,000 that's over here. And if we keep those pockets of money separate, oops, let's go back. Where is my drawing board? Go back. If we keep those pockets there, what we're seeing is, should come back. Maybe not. Let's go back. Let's go over here. Is this the one or is this the one? Either way, what we're seeing here is that if you put those two separate and depend on your money separately, not that you're wasting your money, but you're looking at, okay, maybe the opportunity money is allocated to pay debts off. Maybe it's to increase your savings. Maybe it's to help you with investments. Those are the things that you're looking for to use the opportunity money for. Here's some examples that Leos and veterans have done. You've used it to pay off that gun that you bought, okay? Or maybe that special gear that you wanted that the department doesn't pay for. Or maybe you used it as what we call an emergency fund. or a life happens fund, or maybe you used it to take your spouse or take your children to somewhere where they can actually travel for an experience. Now, what you also want to look at is you want to look at that you're prioritizing the needs over wants under pressure. Because what we're experiencing, people, is we're experiencing that a lot of you are emotional spenders. Now, you may say, what do you mean I'm an emotional spender? Well, sometimes stuff gets hard. You came off of the deployment, you buy yourself a new vehicle, or maybe you buy, purchase a new home, or maybe you go on vacation because you hadn't been able to go on vacation because you've been stuck on a deployment, or maybe you've been stuck on details and you haven't really had an opportunity this year to actually do stuff because you were always working. Now I know some of my fellow Leos in like the department MPD up here in DC, they go and try to get a day off and the days off are canceled. I've had some of those same situations when it comes to my agency. Sometimes we can't be off, right? So you're dealing with real world stresses, which for Leos and veterans, those are trigger points. Now, what do we mean by trigger points? Some of you are, y'all go to Amazon, and Amazon is your favorite place to shop. Or maybe you are into Nikes and you like fresh gear. Or maybe you're into Adidas. Let's spell Adidas right. There we go. Make that an A. All day I dream about success. Yep, Adidas, right? Or maybe, just maybe, you are, and I'm looking at my quick things here. Maybe you're a foodie. You like to go out and eat all the time because that's your de-stressor. Or maybe you just take spare the moment trips and you're not thinking about the costs. But what you have to ask yourself, does it help me or does it hurt my mission financially? What we suggest is that you apply a 24-hour cooling off period. So we'll just say 24-hour cool off here. Where you actually get a chance to reconsider some of your options by just taking a chill pill, not purchasing, not doing anything for 24 hours. I know early on in our relationship, my wife and I, we had a $500 thing where we would discuss it and we'd go to sleep and we wake up and maybe we purchase it after that, right? A couple of times I think I made her really mad because I went out and did major purchases without getting permission. She used to say to me, it's better to ask for forgiveness than to ask for permission, huh? Because I wouldn't follow the rules. And some of you are like that. So then we look at making your benefits work for you, right? Because your benefits are real important too. But see, most of you, when we talk about benefits, you're not looking at how much you should be saving long term. What you're looking at is what comes in that check. Now, for some of you, you have a 401k. Some of you have a 457. Some of you have a combination of some form of profit sharing program. Maybe you're a part of a drop, depending on if you work for the state or a local municipality, drop program. The point I'm making is that some of you have different retirement programs. So I want you to start thinking like this, like, how much do I need to put in my pension, my TSP, if I'm a Leo or federal employee? How much do I need to use my VA disability compensation or health care to help me benefit myself long term? Now, there are some hidden opportunities I want you to think about. Some of the hidden opportunities might be tuition assistance for you or your children or your spouse, home loan programs that you would benefit from. Maybe you don't have to pay the full funding fee, tax exemptions if you're a 100% disabled vet. However you do it, we need to layer those benefits so you get the maximum results for lifetime financial stability. That's what we need to do. Now, number 5, we talk about common traps in law enforcement and veterans' life. Now, one of the things that we know that happens to veterans is this, or law enforcement, especially when you're younger, you have a lot of predatory lending, meaning that you take out high interest rates on your credit cards, your purchases, so it's high interest rates. And we'll make that look pretty, okay? And because you get a lot of overtime, it happens when you buy vehicles. It happens when you acquire different types of toys. And no, I'm not talking about Mattel here. I'm talking about like jet skis and forerunners and ATVs and you name it. Because you're getting that overtime check, you splurge. And then you got those predatory lenders we talked about that they target the military and first responder communities. I remember being in the Marine Corps in Jacksonville, North Carolina. I remember hearing stories of first sergeants and company commanders having to go and help some of my fellow Marines out who had went and been taken advantage of by buying a car, and maybe it was a muscle car, but they bought a car with really high interest, and it was set up where they wouldn't have any more money in their check, but they had a car. They couldn't even afford the insurance, and the company commander or the first sergeant would have to go and tell the company to take the car back because they would not properly do assessments or values, financial values for these Marines. They would basically say, oh, well, we can just deduct it from your check. And that Marine would literally be on base with no gas, but they'd have a nice ride, no insurance, and couldn't afford the car, right? I remember a lot of times as a young Marine walking around because I didn't have a car, right? It just cost too much. Overestimating your retirement income for pensions alone. Like some of you, you're looking at a 20-year retirement. You're looking at having enough money when you retire that you can retire and not have to do anything. Well, newsflash, if we go based off of a 4% rule, 4% divided by whatever total number you want to have, that's going to tell you about how much you can withdraw every year and not go broke. And those numbers you need to get with someone like me, the financial first responder, and talk to them and get a realistic approach of whether or not you're going to be able to retire. And then not preparing for injury or career change. See, some of you, You go out and you get hurt. If you're in the military, you might get a disability check, right? But most of you that work for the government, you'll be disabled and can't work and can no longer stay in your position. So we talk about getting disability insurance because everybody buys life insurance, but nobody ever talks to you about buying disability insurance. Now, being in the military, you know that you would be eligible for disability compensation. But in most cases, the disability compensation in law enforcement is nil or none because you didn't pick that choice, right? And normally in law enforcement, most policies, whether you have any occupation, or a own OC, which means your own occupation, there's a big difference in those two. So I'll explain them. Any OC says you can't work anywhere, meaning if you can work at McDonald's, regardless of how much money you were making, if you can work at McDonald's, Burger King, Subway, doesn't matter, you don't get a check. But if it's your own occupation, you can't work there. They can go anywhere from 50 as high as 60% of your salary. Not overtime. Not overtime. So if your salary was $5,000 a month, let's just say $60,000 a year, or let's say $7,000 a year. That means at 60%, you're getting $3K a month, or you're getting $4,200. Now, for most of you, you couldn't live off of $3,000. Oh, and I didn't tell you this part. If your job pays for it and you don't pay anything for it, that 3K is going to be taxed. Same thing with that 4,200. If you pay for it, then it would be tax free because you paid with after tax dollars, right? So I need you to understand that either you're going to get taxed money and less money than what you were making, $2,000 difference here, $3,800 difference here. These are all things that you need to know prior to you getting hurt. Now, you're probably saying, well, look, Mike, financial first responder, all that sounds good. You know, you've talked about different things to me tonight, and you focused on, let's see, going back, just so I don't miss anything. We talked about understanding your income versus your lifestyle. We talked about smart budgeting that accounts for your overtime and hazardous pay. We've talked about prioritizing your wants versus your needs. And then we talked about making your benefits work for you. And lastly, we talked about some financial traps that you need to be aware of. Now, at this point in time, you've dedicated your life to protecting others. Now is the time for you to protect your financial future. Look, hit the link below, like and subscribe my channel. Share this with someone in your department or with fellow vets. And if you are interested in anything that I might have that could help you be better at what you're doing, DM me and let me know you're interested in us talking further. You see, what I know is this. I have a program called the Financial Positioning System. And if you're interested, I'll send you some information on it. Because just like a GPS, you need to know where you are financially in your life. Look, this is Mike Barnes, the Financial First Responder. Like and subscribe my channel, and I look forward to talking to you. God bless.